Okay, it's recording.
Anything happened since last time? Well, it's okay. Over Moksha and Ersa Mordinian quantifiers. This is nice.
Are you going to give the talk in Faroese?
I'm not going to give the talk in or on Faroese, no. This was Mordinian, but I'm not going to talk about that either.
Oh, what a pity. I wanted to see a talk in Faroese.
Oh, well, I could analyze some text for you if you want. Let me see if it's online.
Well, maybe there is a voice recognition software which takes the talk and automatically translates it to Faroese and then speaks it, and then you just wear the headphones and then you get the automatic Faroese translation, which probably is very understandable.
Okay, so they have a nice picture.
Yeah, nice boobs.
This is something with aesthetics, and this is the mathematical properties of the human body. Yes. Anyway.
Interesting. You have a Greenland project.
Yes, I do. Do you want to see some Greenlandic analysis also?
Oh, well, we are cooperating with the Illurisat and
Okay.
with so.
Okay, so the first wish was for Faroese, so we take Greenlandic afterwards.
How do I
Oh, wait a minute. So there. There's a demo effect. Ah, it's down. But let's try it on the command line instead. Mainland phone there. Well, not that good. But still. Did it come up? Wasn't it? Try again.
Icelandic.
No, this is Faroese. So here.
Faroese.
Så sida TB var stovna dog til 16. oktober 2010 hever TB spilt fotball av Vøllenum av Sevmyri. Okay, we didn't do Sevmyri. Vøllerin var Blivin, this is bad. I should have had Blivin, right? But I didn't. Skeiver. Vøllerin var Blivin Skeiver. The football field was striking. This is very bad. Og løyk ikke alltid og da krøp. So it didn't meet with international demands. But that one I got right. Han ble ikke godkjent til å spille fotball i Vaksnamanna-Delum. So for grown-up to play football. Then this is very bad. This one here I have too many possibilities. But that's because I wasn't able to analyze Vaksnamanna. So there certainly is. So this is a spare time. Yeah. So that was that. So then we had, wait a minute, it's here.
Because that's such it's such a complicated language.
Well, the phonology is really easy.
But
Gifip ilusufit timesonemic architsisip usufai. Yes. Classical. I'm not quite sure whether I'm able to analyze Sesoni. And actually I'm not quite sure whether they are online anyway. Rona again. Perhaps I will again have to, oh yeah, so I'll have to, there are things there. So let me go here. We're just sitting here and entertaining ourselves while the clock turns quarter past. So if you don't like Greenlandic, then shut your eyes.
It looks so great.
So
You
let's
find
see.
a kind of pattern in language.
Textual. Let me see. First, debugging, okay? Within that one. No, I don't know. I haven't checked our Greenlandic analyzer. Looks bad. Let's see. This means house. It won't start. House. Sorry about that. What about our... there it came, so it's so slow. See? So Ichlo is either the absolute case of house, Ichlo, which means house. It's a loan word in Swedish where it means snow. But then it's written with a historical writing. With a J, yes. So it's the GL is a voiceless L, Ichlo. So then it's written like a double L. Or it's the low form of the interjection. Yes, but that's so actually this actually works, but it's so slow. So that was it. Okay, 12:30. Should I actually try to finish? The syntax wasn't too good, but perhaps my syntax was too good. Is it so that most of you here are sort of more into programming than to anything else, or is it so that you are more into anything else than into programming?
Yes, software engineering.
Software
Intelligence charge.
That's fine. Then you're my target group.
I'm fundamentally ignorant.
Okay. Well, that's the target group as good as anyone.
At least I can't miss.
Okay. You got your coffee. We have one, perhaps. Okay. So, part 2. I'm not quite sure whether the last one was what and this one is how, but let's pretend. to do this? Yes. Okay. So very many parts here, but we'll try to fit them in. Yes. Examples, possible things to do, and a short discussion on licensing. So here is a Reykjavik story that I promised you. I was actually not alone by parallel sessions. But in one of those sessions I was invited then to Vigdis Finnbjørnlotte's birthday, 75 years birthday. And there I compared language technology and open source programming movement, and I said that language technology is different, and what you guys did we haven't done. I mean, what was done with Linux in the 90s has not and cannot be done by linguists. And the reason why I said it was I came fresh from Ling software. I had been a year, and I had seen something that made me stunned. We were 20 persons in 4 teams, with each team having programmer, linguists, philologists, computational linguists for Norwegian, Danish, Swedish, actually Norwegian, Danish and Finnish. The Swedish part had been done already, and then one programmer team, and all these teams were put together in making those grammar checkers for Microsoft. And I said, there's no way anything I've seen on any university could match this. We have a door, or 20 persons have 20 doors. We go behind that, and we come out after 20 years with a book, perhaps, or we retire. So this is totally different. It turned out, in a very important sense, I was wrong. I mean, that door started behaving differently in those years. So, and this talk will discuss how wrong I was and why. Perhaps not that much why, but that I was wrong certainly, and perhaps indirectly so by showing the examples. So I start with 2 examples of open infrastructure for language technology. First, what I call the Gielatech infra. Gielatech is a research center where I work. So that isn't to me to say that we are so outstanding, just that I know our things better than others. Giela is Sami for language, North Sami, and we have a cognate in the Finnish kieli. And Hungarian kub for that. Okay, so in case you didn't know, here is where we are. And in Tromsø, and this is what our web page looks like. So you can have it in different languages. And we work with different Sami, Uralic and other languages, and we work with language learning, translation, dictionaries. Yeah. And you can find our source files. Yes, all of them. Yeah, so not only are they are even sort of on the net for the rest of us, so to speak, not only for the ones that are able. Okay, the core idea of our thinking here, and when I say our, I mean Tommy is really sitting there, has been one of the architects behind it, so it's sort of very, very proper to say our here. To have a uniform infrastructure for all the languages, remember those, all those. As you can see, we have a Uralic band, but there are some others there also. Greenlandic very slow, unfortunately, but still, yes. And I've just been to Canada. So, and I will return to the S curve. And the idea is that you can come with your language, Klingon was it, and get out what you want to get out, and we can discuss that. So the message here being joined in, that's why I asked, who are you? Okay, so what do we do and how? The idea here that we have the individual languages, so sort of one parcel each. We have then different templates, and we have the common scripts and filters and schemes, and then we put it together with new outputs. So that's the way we do it. So that's the reason why we are able to come with a new language and get a spell checker for that. So the core and the shared functionality, the resources and the source code, and yeah, the templates. This actually says the same. So pictures will drop this one. So for example, this is an example of one of those shared resources. And that is, as I told in the last screen, we are not, we are so few working with Sami, so we cannot say that it's GPL only, we can say that it's GPL also. So these here are, this is in the format we work with. Here is a lemma, and here is a stem, and here is the address to the place where things are going to happen afterwards. And these are Cyrillic proper nouns, Cyrillic surnames and Cyrillic first names. The thing is that when we work with some of the more than 100 languages in Russia, we have more than, well, we have perhaps more than 10. We are approaching 20, and there are more to go, so to speak. We don't want to upload many of those lists. We want one such list because people use the same names, and then some people will then use native names in addition to being called Sergei and whatnot, so then that will be separate. So this is the idea. This is one type of shared resources. Another type of shared resources is a resource that makes it possible to uppercase the first letter of a word. So for example, a word like the Swedish de or båten for that. Any word, right? When in the beginning of a sentence it's capitalized, but we have to. I mean, it's not trivial. We have to cater for that, so that we can recognize it even though it's written with a capital letter. And that was so the Swedish Björn was the name Björn and the bear Björn, the noun, they must be treated differently because the one is capitalized only in the beginning of the sentence, and the other one is capitalized because it's like Björn Borg. And we have to care for that, and this way of taking care of that, of course, would be the same for all languages, not for Chinese, but for all the languages we have been working with. So that's also an example of this, of these common things, and also the names here. Okay, so language independent templates in what we call GT core, Gera Techno core. Content merged with all the languages when template is changed, and thus the language will always have the updated build instructions and template source files. Okay, so all the languages get all the new functionality and features along the road. We find out that, okay, now we do text-to-speech, then we have the infrastructure around text-to-speech for all the languages. You still have to do the text-to-speech, but I mean, infrastructure is there. You still have to do the linguistic content, but then that's what linguists are for anyway, so that's it, that's okay. So the GT core is then configured and installed in a regular way again. So then there are some dependencies. The Helsinki final stage transducer for morphology, and that Wissel is a group in Odense working with constraint grammar, the only syntactic formalism on which you can earn money, or could have earned money if you had worked in other languages than the languages I work on. But that's it. And then standard packages and tools. Okay, so now I'll try to smile. Again. Thank you. Okay, HFST, just so that you have seen the page. This is on SourceForge here. Helsinki and ICT, finance data technology there. So there you can, for example, you have demos and so on, and you have. Do we get back here? Yes. Downloads. You can download both the source and you can also download languages here. So this is really try it at home. Yes. We also have the Whistle CG3. I'll return to talk more about Whistle CG3, but here is here's the nice, very little developer milieu. Kino Didriksen, what should I say? So nerd who uses Windows. But I mean, he will fix. I mean, if you have things that you want to add to Whistle CG3, you can just contact him and he will have it before you go to bed. That's sort of my experience there. Constraint grammar has a history going back to Helsinki again in the 1990s, and then being re-engineered. This compiler, you remember from before the break, the Vi ville, what was it? The Norwegian Vi ville ha stein, the stones and that used this software. So both the companies Linksoft and Connexoft, the Finns went,
they use their versions of this software. So this is the Danish version of it. I'll return to it. So then there's again the try it as home factor. We have in Gela Techno getting started page. You have to have Unix. We like the Macs, but you can certainly use Linux. But this is Unix anyway and open source. We say that there are Windows there, but I've never. Well, I've seen people trying and crying at the same time. So yes. Okay. So then there is download the repository. You can do that in two ways. Download everything 13 gigabytes with all the languages, or you can pick your language and pick your language and the infrastructure. It said something down here. Yeah. Follow these instructions to take a single language. Okay. So that was that. So what you then will get, this is blah, like blacksmith. But this is the beauty of it. All the setups are the same from language to language. So when after having worked with Blackfoot for a while, then you will easily see how it is for Faroese, for example. So we have the source files with the filters, and the phonetics. That's text to IPA, orthography. That's different orthographic convention, transcription. Then we have from number words into number 4 into 4 into FO. UR and so. The morphology with affixes and with stems and phonology and syntax. And then tools, so then we have things that makes it possible to turn this linguistics into tools. Yes. So what's in it for me? Me being not me, not you. Actually, this is S-curve. So as you all, this is common. Forget about this one first, right? So this is what we know with the project. First, you have to understand and learn and set up and test and fail, and then you can start, and then you get to 85, 90, and then you have the rest of your life ahead of you to approaching 100. So the offer here is to start not here on the timeline, but here. So that's what I mean with cheating with S-curve. This is what we have done. Here are all languages. Yes, Blackfoot's here, which we haven't done much with. A little bit more of Ojibwe and Plains Creek, but this is, of course, this is where we are. The Somali is actually quite good. Okay, what we are best at, or no, what competing approaches is worse at, is languages with much morphology, much inflection. So this is where we, in the case we have a competition for the other languages, it is because our competitors have the same approaches as we do, which is fine. So, each language builds instructions and automated tests, and then again the same tools. But of course, on the not all of those dots were equally content. So, and we can turn to tools and tool sets on and off via configuration options. So when I write make, this is what happens. Xerox, this is this closed source. But nice to have tools with their. We build with the open compiler, so we build both actually, and we can turn both off. So here, this is the standard. I have my analyzers, I have my generators, I have my syntax, I have my test cases, so that we can say, did I have the regression? Or is everything fine? Where are the errors? And I generate documentation. So this is sort of default. Okay, so then I can, in my configure, /configure with the options, I can say I want my spellers for Blackfoot. I want the HFST, the voice which is a Finnish spelling machine. The FOMA also a Finnish spelling machine. I want my grammar checker enabled. So we are sort of just started with that one, but in principle it will be the same. And when we have that up and running, then again we can say, okay, for Blackfoot I don't want to make a grammar checker yet. And we can have specialized transducer. So this is from text into IPA, phonetic transcription. So we have special final stage transducer for dictionaries that, so when they generate example pronouns, they don't generate too much. So we want to be, when we analyze, we want to understand everything. When we generate, we want to generate only certain things. Yes, and then this is our language learning tools, and this is our transducer for machine translation. So we can say, I want this, I don't want this, and so on. Okay, and then comes the other one. This is Apertum. This is actually the reason why I was wrong in. I understood this, that I was wrong in Reykjavik. If you go outside the university and ask people what is language technology, also before Google Translate came in, they would actually answer machine translation. So we have this window that you perhaps saw where we analyze. So very often people have, at the time when we did only North Sami, they could, for example, write in Norwegian and expect to get out North Sami, or they could write in North Sami and expect to get out Norwegian, because to lay persons, the machine translation was equivalent with language technology. But here it is. So here you can see, here this is very many languages, and there are more than this is on the stable ones. So and here we have a whole culture for working on this. Let's be sort of indiscreet and see whether something is, probably nothing is going on. So anyone, but here you can come here and discuss with people, and you can what one of the leading developers says exactly. We are basically handing out passwords like candy. So this is a very open. Oh, with the Sami keyboard. Exactly. Okay. So thanks to Spectre. So as you can see, I mean, this is really an open video. So actually the same guy that said hello and smiled to us, he also has built this page here, an MT system in 1,000 steps. 1,000, that's not bad. So this is actually has to do with Google coding and Google Summer of Code. I don't know whether you are familiar with Google Summer of Code. This is a very nice thing. Google, of course, have their own two reasons, I can guess, for using them. One is to get a better standing in milieus like this, and another one is to see if there are things that come up that is nice to them, and the third thing could be the philanthropic one. Perhaps they are nice guys after all. But anyway, I mean, one should be glad for money like this. So what he has done here, you can say these are very, very small tasks for young volunteers, high school kids. So you can say, so find a language, find a grammar for these two languages, add positions and conjunctions, add determiners, add pronouns, add numerals, categorize and lemmatise, take a frequency list. So categorize word, 15 tasks, read more. Okay, before and after. Is it big enough? And this is Russian. There. So this is Belarus. So before and after. Is it? Yes. So what happened? So what happened was that was that we say that wait a minute.
I don't see an answer there. This is wrong.
I think it's wrong. I think I got the after on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be that this column should be here also. No, sorry, here, this is it. This is it, of course. This is the second step. The first step was already there. This was the first step. Yes. Yes, this is the first step. Right? You have bula here and bula, so that becomes to bula to beats. So these are things that any mother tongue speakers with a little grammatical knowledge could do. So this is sort of crowdsourcing for grammar-based machine translation. There's more to it than that, certainly. I mean, you get into the complexities, but as in other software, in all software projects, and perhaps more here than in the projects that you perhaps are involved in, you really will need persons with different backgrounds. So here, someone will understand Belarus, Russian, and others will not. Someone will be good at programming, others will not. Someone will be good at linguistics, and others will not. So this actually shows how wrong I was. And I could also go in here for and to look at. So then I will have here the no, that was I thought I would find where the SN here is. Afrikaans language. I don't find it. But in here you have the, so for example the nursery and the nursery. So for example here's one where I've been acting myself from North Sami to a machine translation system from North Sami to South Sami. So here's the source code, and here you can see Eisavaldi, Oivia, and it's here, so you can take it and do what you want with it, and you can add to it.
I'm just wondering, how will you handle when you meet a new language which has some strange peculiarities which are rare other places? Like for instance, you have these African clicking languages, you have clicking sounds. How do you handle things like that?
Click sounds are actually, wait a minute. Click sounds. The problem with the click sounds are that there were linguists involved. Yeah. So this is a Unicode version of the clicks, and this is the auxiliary version of the click. Right? You use a plus instead of this Unicode sign. You use an exclamation mark, and this is particularly bad, instead of this one. This is not an exclamation mark. It just looks like it. This is a Unicode 01C3, whether this is a Unicode 0021, that is an ASCII character, right? And this is definitely not an ASCII character. So if you double click, and this is how it's written in the Bantu languages, in Mosa, for example. So Mosa will then have a lateral click there, and a dental click there. And a retroflex click there. But this is in the standard Sun orthography is written like this. So I mean, The only bad thing with this is that people use those signs who have radically different uses, but it's not only clear, on the Skål Sami uses apostrophes, the same bad thing. So a text would, no, I don't have text here. Do I? Here. So this is the same text. Here with the correct letters and here with the auxiliary symbols. Which means that you will for the, here for example, so if I double click here, then this letter, the letter I'll click will be part of it, but this is an exclamation mark, they look the same, but it will not be part of it. So on behalf of the world's linguists, I should say that my shame on my colleagues, but they went to Kalahari with a typewriter, and this was what they found. But they should have been using the Bantu system. Yes, so that's what I want to say. So the problem isn't the, I mean, the clicks are sounds like any other sounds. The problem is that the typewriters of those links. Okay. So then, for the last minutes here, my watch flew me. Okay, the possible projects for the open source community here. Well, I could be wrong, but one would then be, one important thing is for user and programming interfaces. So we have a very bad story in LibreOffice and OpenOffice, and to the more people that know and care about it, the better. It only shows enabled languages and document languages. So the bad language selection is that what we want is to have language feature. There should be independent modules installed via plugins and not at compile time. So for example, in I have not made spell checkers for yeah, I can show you here. Let me see the preferences. I can go in here on language settings. Can you see this? On void go. Okay. So this is what I have here. I have Plains, Cree, Faroese, Northern Haida, 10 speakers, and Southern Sami. This is not your average speller list. It happens to be mine. So, okay. I mean, this is possible. I mean, I have devoted users for all these languages. But they can't use it. And how come? Because these languages are not on the list. Right? They simply are not here. So, for example, if I happen to add Scots Gaelic in Scotland, or Ganda, which is the official language of Uganda, so I'm very glad it's there, or Georgian, Olympics is coming up. So, and Akan, a West African language, and I can, but Northern Haida, I cannot, and why not? Because it's not on the list. And when I go to the guys in LibreOffice, they say, well, we would rather have a localization, a localized version of LibreOffice first. But how? Come on, 10 speakers. You don't. There's a very bad idea to spend resources on localizing the whole LibreOffice. What we want is to use the analyzer that we want for our dictionary, because we have a dictionary that knows morphology. And that's very good for the complicated language of Northern Haida. And that transducer we have already turned into a spell checker that we have plugged into LibreOffice. It's just that we can't do it because it's not on the list. So here my hero is then actually Windows 8. Because what they do is that they say, oh, okay, we got tired of fiddling with the list, so our list is ISO 637, 639, which is the code of every 7,130 something languages. So that means if you come with your spell checker for Haida, then Haida is HDN for Northern Haida, and then it's on this list. So either it is there in English, but not in, say, Finnish, if I had it in Finnish, or it is there with the code. But I mean, I can live with the code. Because when I do Haida, I know that it's HDN. And the bad thing for me is that I cannot use it at all. So this is actually something that I really would have seen with a more open policy towards this. And then of course, because what we don't want here is a list of 7,000. We don't want that. That I can understand. But there's no reason to have 7,000. What we could have a list that grows for every language you plug in. Yes?
You should be able to also to choose which ones of these you want to have easily accessible, because it's a pain to browse
that as
through
well.
all that list all the time.
I'm the ones making that pain larger because I insist on having more. I have myself being for if you see here, so many English languages, incredible, and so many Sami languages, equally many. Okay, so I'm to blame for one of those lists.
No, but you should have a possibility to put a priority list. About
Exactly.
these.
Yeah, I mean you can exactly, and immediately when you start thinking of it, you come up with good ideas, of course. But I mean, these people haven't thought too much. Yes. So this is really a thing that I would really like to see. So, I mean, we should be able to be as good as we know say. We should. Okay. Yeah, and then also of course keywords and font. I don't want to link keywords to language since I write German and English with a Norwegian keyboard. But yeah. Okay, and then LangTech to the people with packages. Packages for language developers and linguists, and packages for distributors and end users, and targeted packages. So that means something to think of, something to join in on. So for example, to prepare a system for what is needed to do linguistic development. Install and set up the GT core dependencies. For example, I use Mac port since there's a Mac. Sudo port install GT core. And then SVN checkout of the languages we want to work with. For example, make the language tools available to end users. So Russian and then the dependencies, sudo port install GT language, something like that. That would also be nice. For example, for different platforms. I don't know what to mean those, but anyway. And we could think of integration task. So now what we know, we work on LibreOffice here now. But what we really want is a system-wide speller, right? So that these speller things could go anywhere. So what I would like to go on the HFST page, take my Swedish FST there, and make it into a spell checker on my Gela Techno tools, and then have that everywhere, so that I can ask my Sami, add my Sami related Sami words and my own name into this Sami, into this Swedish spell checker, for example. And index and searching, lemmatizing, stemming for all languages, that will also be something. And then grammar checker technology, this is sort of coming up. And then other writing tools, automatic hyphenation, we are working on that. Predictive writing, grammar editing. I mean, this we have not done. Swap NP orders. So when you drag, sort of, we can swap word order. But with languages in words, like with languages phrases, so switch phrase order, so that the computer would know what the phrase is. Change person. So if you change the person, then it changes the word and so on. And you could take language technology support for localization, both with machine translation and with linguistically intelligent translation memory. So that when you have the match that you often use when you use localization, that could be enriched by linguistic features. And also, well, okay, speech synthesis role. That's also when we are starting, now we do speech synthesis with a company in Stockholm, a cappella. That's just because we are better at text than at sound, but our goal is to do it with a cappella once and then do it without afterwards. And have speech synthesis into this type of language independent infrastructure. And to tap in on the people in Edinburgh to be able to do that. Yes, the licensing thing, this is actually a thing with Whistle CG3. The competitor for Whistle CG3 when I started working on it 10 years ago was the Finnish company Connexor, for the ones who know the Finnish scene. And the bid I got from them was one program on one machine that, okay, everyone can use, but one machine for 3 years for 3,000 euros. The problematic part there for me at that time was that for 3 years, because I had no guarantee I would have 3,000 new euros in 3 years. So I instead went to Odense and got this license. And this now has very many users. The connexor analyzers have many users. Many statisticians, for example, the machine translation milieu in Linköping, they use this connexor for making gold standards for Swedish. But they don't develop it, they just use it, and then they get the corpus analyzed, and then they use statistics to train on that. So the software is good, but it's not developed outside this company. So that's, I mean, this is a good thing with open source. That if you have it open source, then it's alive. Although it's not necessarily so much thought going into pleasing the customer. But anyway, it's alive. So the thing here is that I can have it, and I can even make working programs with it, as I have them. So it's not that it's only for research. This is the curse of the academic tradition, is that they say we can have it either for research, theoretical toy models that shouldn't work, or we could have it commercially for commercial companies, and they have to pay. But this is not what I want. I want it to work. I cannot make money on it because it's for Sami, but I want it to work. But this one I can use for Sami because there's no money there. But if you want to use it for Swedish or for French and are very clever so you can make money for it, then Eckhart people come knocking at the door. So this is the bad thing about this. And so we have a problem. I showed you OpenOffice with this engine there behind, but this isn't settled. So one way of settling it is to get it settled. Another way of settling it is to do the engineering job again. So that could be, this is written in C++. I like both Kino and this software, so I would rather see it. So this is sort of, this is what we have here. Okay, so the status then is that the Demon GT, that our tools, they have a license that you could pick what you want, and with the HFSD it's GPL. Forma and SFSD is not quite that easy, but these are two sub-components, but you can do without. And the VCG3, that's still out. The jury is still out there. So conclusions. First, the buzzwords. Okay, the buzzwords. So the real conclusion. We have language technology and linguistic resources. Certainly not the only linguists that have that, but what makes us special is first that we are so focused upon languages with more morphology than English, and already Swedish actually comes in there. Let alone Greenlandic and Nupiaq and Blackfoot. And second, that what we do, since we are alone in working with Sami, we really want everything to work. I mean, we cannot say that a cappella can do the speech synthesis and Microsoft can do the spell checking because, well, in our case, we have it for Microsoft and we ask a cappella, but this is only once. We get money for it once, and after that we are our own, and we will manage to do that. So this makes us more broader than many others. And we like to cooperate with other parts. This room, anyone? On the open source movement to turn these into end user products and into other components, into components in other programs. This is actually, I mean, very much what we do is connected to natural language. This is, I mean, most of us are interested in natural language in one way or another. Okay. Many of our sounds are, of course, animal-like and not human language-like, but some of our sounds are animal-like. And we'd like to do that for as many languages as possible. And there we are. And that's it. Thank you.
Questions? questions?
Or comments.
More comments? Yeah.
It was really nice to get to know this, and from my point of view as a psychologist, the question of to be in touch with your roots from an identity point of view, and also from the cultural point of view. Of course, this solution seems to be more close to your kind of origin, and of course that's so important for the small languages in the north. And we have a problem working on the project, for example, using English, because there are no words for our reality. And so we have tried in our joint with Russia, Sweden, Norway and Finland. We are putting in Finnish words or Russian words, and so it's really a serious thing, and it's so damn important to do this job.
To a certain extent we can help with that. We can, the language technology we work on is good for making parallel text, digging out terminology. When there is no terminology, someone has to make it, and that someone will not be the computer. That someone will be the terminologist and the users. But when that is done, then language technology can help putting it into use. What I show here is an example of our WAPA language learning, because that I thought that you were going to that and not to terminology, our language learning portal. But we also, you can also find us here with different dictionary and another language, different dictionary solutions. So that you can find also with terminology. But again, we must have the terminologists and the texts and the users, and then we can have viewpoints on how to work with it. I mean, we are here in a city with the language bank of Swedish, which is much more professional in this area than we are in Tromsø. So certainly you might as well ask the people here across the corridor. No, up in the house up there, wherever they are.
How they are distributed.
Exactly.
I was also thinking of what makes me almost desperate is reading my students' papers, because they have this Microsoft in Norwegian, which divides the words that are supposed to be together in the most crazy ways. So really, that's part of the reality of languages, and really this
well, if they write in Norwegian, then actually Microsoft has a better, as I showed in my first talk, the Microsoft machine for handling compounds is presently better than the open source version, and I know that because I know the guys who made it and I worked in the same company. But what we did not do for them was to add split compounding in the Norwegian grammar checker that came with Microsoft. So if our work then had been open source, we would have added it, or someone else would have added it later on. But that's a logical next step. It's hard, but in some cases it will be possible to fix. Okay, you first.
I have two questions. Two technical and one political. First, you talked about your linking with the OpenOffice and LibreOffice. How loose is the coupling? Is your program kind of supposed to be a part of the LibreOffice package, or is it supposed to be a package on its own that you can link with it?
The latter. Definitely the latter. And we already have it in Microsoft Word, since that was what we got funded for. But we want it in LibreOffice also because there we can do what we want in a totally different way. And we also want it in system-wide and in your browser so that you can have in your Google, when you write in your Google Docs, you can, and so on.
Mm.
LibreOffice is only one of many end-user programs we are targeting. No special things about LibreOffice, but of course the language for the variations from release to the release and from operative system to operative system for Windows, of course, has make us lose good programmers because they couldn't cope with it. They were so desperate. So that's, of course, that's a problem.
I can ask you later about the settings.
Okay. So then,
well, my question was related to that one with LibreOffice. Have you tried to influence the development group there in adjusting the handling of it?
we just recently learned the right way to do it, which is my Windows way. So that we haven't tried, but we have, for example, the summary role that you saw. I mean, we have played by the rules. So no, we have not suggested them to change rules, but we will.
Good, just 5 and 5.
Yes. Okay, you're standing there and waiting for something. Okay. So, was it, this was all? Yes. No, I'm not quite sure when is it so that we start at 1:15? So that we have,
Yes. So we have
okay, so we have 2 minutes to grab a coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So next up, 1:15 is Tommy Pienen, open source morphologies and crowdsourcing.